We see it all too often. A business goes out to look for a new technology service provider and signs up with the one they think ticks all of their boxes, only to go back out to tender within months after realising they picked the wrong provider for their business's needs. On the face of it, the service provider looked like they ticked all the boxes, but when it came to the crunch, the provider they picked were too slow to respond, their technicians didn't know what they were doing, they had no point of contact within the business outside of the service desk, the provider didn't recognise what was urgent versus what was low priority, and they didn't understand the customer's goals and why they do what they do. Had they have taken more time to assess multiple service providers and looked at the bigger picture, an awful lot of time and money could have been saved by simply selecting the perfect technology service provider in the first place. Sound familiar? Well, if that's you, or if you want to avoid that being you in the future, then stick around for the rest of the video whilst we discuss the 10 biggest mistakes businesses make when choosing a technology service provider. And we'll give you some helpful advice on how to avoid them. Mistake number 1 is failing to understand that it's highly unlikely when comparing two service providers you will be comparing apples to apples. Now, this can be really difficult to get your head around, particularly if you're the designated IT decision maker in your business and you aren't actually technical. You see, all technology service providers package their services differently. Some are all you can eat and bundle everything they provide into one flat fee. Some bill per user, some bill per device. Some will include on-site visits, others only include remote support. Some include cybersecurity software and some don't. And for those who do include cybersecurity software, are they including everything the next provider is? What brands are they using? Are they best in class? Are they cheap and cheerful? It's a minefield, and this is often where businesses struggle to make a well-informed decision. It's all a little too confusing. One way to get through this minefield is to use a check sheet to benchmark each service provider against one another and score each item you're benchmarking out of 10. You still need to do some due diligence in order to determine who is including what in their proposals. If in doubt, ask the questions, but this check sheet should give you a simple way of comparing the provider's services. We've popped a link in the description to a sample check sheet which you can elaborate on and add your own questions to. Mistake number 2 is not wanting to pay for an audit of your systems prior to receiving a detailed proposal. Something often overlooked is the importance and value that a systems audit will give when tendering for a new technology service provider. The chances are you don't have full clarity on what your IT infrastructure looks like. And if you don't, then a new technology service provider who hasn't conducted an audit themselves definitely won't. Systems audits can seem like an unnecessary expense, but the importance of regularly auditing and reviewing your IT infrastructure shouldn't be downplayed. One of the most critical aspects of IT security is identifying what you have and where you have it, because you can't secure what you don't know you have. Audits tell you all of this and more. The fact that many service providers submit a proposal for providing services prior to actually surveying what they're actually going to be providing service on is kind of baffling. This often causes issues further down the road when the new service provider stumbles across something on the network which they didn't factor into supporting. Therefore, uncovering a hidden cost, or far worse, a device they didn't know existed and therefore hadn't protected gets breached, and you end up with an extremely costly and possibly business-ending cyber attack. Always make sure you get a thorough systems audit completed prior to taking on a new technology service provider, and pay for it. Free audits are great, but there's often a reason they're free. If you're willing to pay for an audit, then it's likely to be far more thorough and the report you receive will be far more comprehensive, which in turn is worth paying for. On to mistake number 3, and that is not visiting the service provider's facilities or help desk to get an idea of how they actually work. Your technology service provider will likely visit your offices many times a year, but how many times have you visited them? Understanding how the potential provider will support your business can be key to making sure you select the right partner for you. Visiting their offices will allow you to see their systems and processes, how they collaborate to get the job done, their escalation process, discuss and view the KPIs they track, meet some of the back office teams such as their account managers, and just generally get a feel for whether the provider's culture and values resonate with you and whether you feel you can have a long-term relationship with them. Mistake number 4 is thinking that all technology service providers are created equal. Whilst nearly all offer the traditional technical support desk, often that is simply all a smaller provider will actually provide and focus on, despite suggesting they offer other services. Now, this causes a huge issue for you, the end customer, because these IT support providers who say they do the job of a technology service provider tend to have fewer staff and technical resources and are less capable of having a well-rounded technology conversation about your business. Whilst these IT support providers will be able to provide support services to businesses generally at a lower cost than a technology service provider, not all businesses want or need just IT support. Outstanding technology service and what most companies need to grow their business is more than simply a support desk for when things go wrong. Great technology service providers have the basic IT support desk covered, but they also have additional skills and resources that are crucial for businesses to grow and minimise risk whilst doing so. These additional skills and resources lie in the ability to provide up-to-date cybersecurity knowledge through employing certified cybersecurity professionals, having network operations teams capable of monitoring a business's systems and proactively maintaining local and cloud infrastructures, having resources with knowledge around the latest technologies, taking the time to suggest, demonstrate and train you on how to get the most out of the technology your business uses. Great technology service providers will meet with their customers regularly to discuss and gather feedback on the service they've been providing, offer consultancy and advice around streamlining operations and processes using technology, and providing their customers with well thought out technology roadmaps which fit their customers' budgets. Most businesses don't just need someone they can call when things break. They need a partner who understands their business and can provide support in many different areas. Mistake number 5 is being in the mindset of thinking that knowledge is a commodity when choosing your technology service provider. Knowledge is earned and there's usually a high financial and time-based cost to that. This can have an effect on the overall service you receive from a service provider and their cost. What differentiates a technology service provider that's been in the game for 20 years versus one that's been in the game for 5 years? Usually knowledge and experience. Knowledge and experience of working with businesses like yours. If you're going out to tender for a new service provider, would you not want the one with the most knowledge and experience? You could also argue that technology service provider who has more resources would have more knowledge and experience than a smaller provider due to the collective amount of heads in the business. The amount of technologies businesses use these days is astronomical. And whilst having enough generic knowledge to resolve most day-to-day technology-related issues is great, it's far better to have dedicated resources with specific skills than generic skills across the board. A service provider who departmentalises or has expert resources with concentrated and dedicated skills in certain areas, for example, Microsoft 365, cybersecurity, or VoIP telecoms, will usually be able to provide a higher level of service. Ignoring security and compliance standards of service providers is mistake number 6. Neglecting to evaluate the service provider's capabilities in terms of security and compliance with relevant regulations can be a critical mistake. This oversight can expose your business to data breaches, legal penalties, and damage to reputation. As mentioned, most technology service providers will offer IT service desk services, but to what level are they compliant with regulatory or voluntary standards such as Cyber Essentials, NIST, ISO 9001 and ISO 27001? A service provider with any of those credentials are likely a step above the rest in terms of security, process, consistency of service, and continuous improvement of their business. Mistake number 7 is not fully assessing your business's needs and goals. One of the primary mistakes is failing to thoroughly assess and understand your own business needs and goals before choosing a new provider. This leads to selecting a technology service that may not align well with the specific requirements or growth plans of the business. In many instances, the decision to switch service provider comes out of the need for a better quality of service, faster response, or because there are issues that the existing provider is unable to resolve. Reactive problems in the here and now. It's also common for businesses looking for a new service provider to think, we don't need a lot of support because we only use emails, Microsoft Office and Sage accounts. Plus, Bob in finance replaced his router at home, so he can provide most of our technical support. This is a really narrow mindset. Think about the longer term reasons for using technology to grow your business. Think about what else may be needed. Backups, cybersecurity, compliance. Who's going to pick up the pieces when it all goes wrong? If business growth and risk mitigation is something that's important to you, it's worth completely assessing your business's requirements prior to jumping in and selecting a new technology service provider. Mistake number 8 is overlooking scalability and flexibility. Many businesses do not consider how scalable and flexible their technology services need to be. As a business grows or its needs change, the technology services should be able to scale and adapt accordingly. Failing to consider this can result in services that quickly become inadequate, difficult to manage, or overly expensive. We see it time and time again, a network that's out of control, riddled with issues, problems everywhere, a one-man band popping in once a month to tackle a mountain of issues, or worse, a service provider who's nowhere to be seen. The key here is to find a service provider who can grow with you, who offers scalable infrastructure services and who can help you adapt to change quickly should your business need to. Not researching the provider's reputation and track record is mistake number 9. Failing to conduct thorough research into the provider's reputation, customer service record, and the experiences of other clients can lead to partnering with a provider that may not be reliable or well suited to your business's needs. Testimonials, case studies, and independent reviews can provide valuable insights into a provider's track record. You could start by checking out their social media to give you a better insight into their culture and their overall brand image. Google reviews are a great way of assessing their customer satisfaction, as they can only be posted by the individual giving the review, unlike reviews which are located on a business's website. And of course, don't forget to ask for existing customer references. I'd recommend getting in contact with the customer yourself rather than relying on anything emailed directly from the service provider. And lastly, mistake number 10 is choosing a technology service provider based solely on cost. While cost is an important factor, making a decision based solely on the lowest price can lead to poor service quality, lack of required services, and additional hidden costs in the long run. It's important to consider the value and the return on investment, not just the initial expense. If you go for the cheapest option, it's worth having a think about how the service provider is able to provide the services, train their team, and make a profit in order to stay in business long term at that price. As a general rule of thumb, businesses should be spending in the region of 3 to 10% of their revenue on technology. Many small businesses barely scratch the surface of this, as they fail to see technology as an investment. Those who do reap the rewards long term by becoming more productive, efficient, streamlined, lean, and most importantly, profitable. When shopping for a technology service provider, or any investment for that matter, it's important to remember the common law of business balance. It's unwise to pay too much, but it's worse to pay too little. When you pay too much, you lose a little money, that's all. When you pay too little, you sometimes lose everything, because the thing you bought was incapable of doing the thing it was bought to do. The common law of business balance prohibits paying a little and getting a lot. It can't be done. If you deal with the lowest bidder, it's as well to add something for the risk you run. And if you do that, you will have enough to pay for something better in the first place. By being aware of these common mistakes, businesses can make more informed decisions when choosing a technology service provider, ensuring they select a partner that best suits their needs and supports their growth. If you're looking for a technology service provider who aligns to the advice given in this video, then look no further. At Dufeu, we provide technology and cybersecurity services to businesses across the UK and the rest of the world. Our contact details are in the video description if you want to get in touch. Hopefully this video gave you something to think about when looking to select a new technology service provider. If you liked the video, please give it a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe to our channel, and we will see you in the next video.